Covet. Yearn to possess or have something. Dotty. Informal or slang terms for mentally irregular. Intensely enthusiastic about or preoccupied with. Delude. Escape, either physically or mentally. Be incomprehensible to, escape understanding by. Avoid or try to avoid fulfilling, answering, or performing duties, questions, or issues. Frown. A facial expression of dislike or displeasure. Look angry or sullen, wrinkle one's forehead, as if to signal disapproval. Giddy. Having or causing a whirling sensation, liable to falling. Lacking seriousness, given to frivolity. Growl. Make a low guttural sound in the throat. A low guttural sound made in the throat by a hostile dog or other animal. Heave. An act of heaving, especially a strong pull. Throwing something heavy with great effort. Produce a sigh. Lift or haul a heavy thing, with great effort. Jumpy. Being in a tense state. Causing or characterized by jolts and irregular movements. Loony. Someone deranged and possibly dangerous. Informal or slang terms for mentally irregular. Penal. Of or relating to punishment. Serving as or designed to impose punishment. Phony. A person who professes beliefs and opinions that he or she does not hold, in order to conceal his or her real feelings or motives. Fraudulent, having a misleading appearance. Scram. Of a nuclear reactor or some other thing, to shut down, usually because of an emergency. To leave in a hurry, to go away. Sissy. A timid man or boy considered childish or unassertive. Having unsuitable feminine qualities. Soapy. Resembling or having the qualities of soap. Unpleasantly and excessively suave, or ingratiating in manner or speech. Spurt. The occurrence of a sudden discharge as of liquid. Gush forth in a sudden stream or jet. Move or act with a sudden increase in speed or energy. Swank. Elegance by virtue of being fashionable. Display proudly, act ostentatiously or pretentiously. Imposingly fashionable and elegant. Taunt. Aggravation by deriding, or mocking or criticizing. Harass with persistent criticism or carping. Truce. A state of peace agreed to between opponents, so they can discuss peace terms. Undue. Not yet payable. Unwarranted or inappropriate, because excessive or disproportionate. Lacking justification or authorization. Valet. A manservant who acts as a personal attendant to his employer. Serve as a personal attendant to. Wacky. Ludicrous, foolish. Informal or slang terms for mentally irregular. Weary. Exhaust or get tired through overuse or great strain or stress. Lose interest or become bored with something or somebody. Physically and mentally fatigued. Whack. The act of hitting vigorously. An attempt, a chance, a turn, a go, originally an attempt to beat someone or something. To kill, bump off. To hit, slap or strike. Albino. A person with congenital albinism, white hair and milky skin, eyes are usually pink. Congenitally lacking melanin pigmentation in the skin, eyes, and hair or feathers are more rarely only in the eyes, born with albinism. A person or animal congenitally lacking melanin pigmentation in the skin, eyes, and hair or feathers are more rarely only in the eyes, one born with albinism. allure. The power to entice, or attract through personal charm. Dispose or incline or entice to. Ascent. A movement upward. The act of changing location in an upward direction. Astral. Being or relating to or resembling or emanating from stars. Attire. Clothing of a distinctive style, or for a particular occasion. Put on special clothes, to appear particularly appealing and attractive. Brassy. Resembling the sound of a brass instrument. Tastelessly showy. Unrestrained by convention or propriety. Choral. Compassed for or sung by a choir or chorus. Engaged in or concerned with singing. Clergy. The body of all people ordained for religious duties, especially in the Christian Church. Convoy. A procession of land vehicles traveling together. A collection of merchant ships with an escort of warships. The act of escorting while in transit. Escort in transit. Demise. The conveyance or transfer of an estate, either in fee for life or for years, most commonly the latter. A person's death. The end of something, in a negative sense, downfall. To pass by inheritance. Escort. A sex worker who does not operate in a brothel, but with whom clients make appointments, a call girl or male equivalent. A guard who travels with a dangerous person, such as a criminal, for the protection of others. An accompanying person in a social gathering, etc. to accompany a person, in order to compel them to go somewhere. Exotic. Being or former characteristic of another place or part of the world. Strikingly strange or unusual. Freaky. Strange and somewhat frightening. Conspicuously or grossly unconventional or unusual. Fright. An emotion experienced in anticipation of some specific pain or danger, usually accompanied by a desire to flee or fight. Cause fear in. Gables. The vertical triangular wall between the sloping ends of gable roof. The part of a wall that encloses the end of a pitched roof. Giggle. A foolish or nervous laugh. Laugh nervously. Grouch. A bad-tempered person. Show one's unhappiness or critical attitude. Grudge. A resentment strong enough to justify retaliation. Bear a grudge, harbor ill feelings. Accept or admit unwillingly. Grumpy. Annoyed and irritable. Hamper. A restraint that confines or restricts freedom, especially something used to tie down, or restrain a prisoner. A basket, usually with a cover. Prevent the progress or free movement of. Put at a disadvantage. Hectic. Marked by intense agitation or emotion. Holler. By extension, any communication to get somebody's attention. To yell or shout. To complain, gripe. Impart. Make information known, communicate. Bestow a quality on. Impure. Morally wrong, especially in sexual matters. Mixed with foreign matter, adulterated. Having a physical or moral blemish so as to make impure according to dietary or ceremonial laws. Invent. Make up an idea, name, story, etc., especially so as to deceive someone. Create or design something that has not existed before, be the originator of. Joyous. Full of or characterized by joy. Lesion. Any localized abnormal structural change in a bodily part. An injury to living tissue, especially an injury involving a cut or break in the skin. Levity. Feeling an inappropriate lack of seriousness. A manner lacking seriousness. Madman. An insane person. Manger. A long open box or trough for horses or cattle to eat from. Maniac. An insane person. A person who has an obsession with or excessive enthusiasm for something. Wildly disordered. Mayhem. The crime of damaging things, or harming people on purpose. The maiming of a person, by depriving him of the use of any of his limbs which are necessary for defense or protection. A state or situation of great confusion, disorder, trouble or destruction, chaos. Infliction of violent injury on a person or thing. Measly. Small, especially contemptibly small in amount, of a person, infected with measles. Particularly of pigs or pork, infected with larval tapeworms or trichiny parasitic roundworms. Menace. An annoying and bothersome person or thing. A perceived threat or danger. The act of threatening. To make threats against someone, to intimidate. Misled. Lead someone in the wrong direction, or give someone wrong directions. Give false or misleading information to. Muzzle. A leather or wire restraint that fits over an animal's snout, especially a dog's nose and jaws. Restraint put into a person's mouth to prevent speaking or shouting. Prevent from speaking out. Oblige. To be indebted to someone. To constrain someone by force or by social, moral or legal means. To do someone a service or favor, hence, originally, creating an obligation. Pantry. A small storeroom for storing foods or wines. Phony. Not genuine, fraudulent. A fraudulent person or thing. Ponder. Reflect deeply on a subject. Putrid. Of or relating to or attended by putrefaction. In an advanced state of decomposition, and having a foul odor. Morally corrupt or evil. Quench. Satisfy one's thirst, by drinking. Put out, as of fires, flames, or lights. Suppress or crush completely. Rapist. A person who has committed rape. Relish. Vigorous and enthusiastic enjoyment. Spicy or savory condiment. The taste experienced when a savory condiment is taken into the mouth. Derive or receive pleasure from, get enjoyment from, take pleasure in. Riddle. A question or statement intentionally phrased so as to require ingenuity in ascertaining its answer or meaning, typically presented as a game. Speak interpose riddles. Rogues. A deceitful and unreliable scoundrel. Ruckus. The act of making a noisy disturbance. Rumple. Disturb the smoothness of. To gather something into small wrinkles or folds. Become wrinkled or crumpled or creased. Saddle. A low part of a ridge between two higher points or peaks. A seat fastened on the back of a horse or other animal for riding, typically made of leather and raised at the front and rear. Septic. Containing or resulting from disease-causing organisms. Of or relating to or caused by putrefaction. Sinner. A person who transgresses against divine law by committing an immoral act or acts. Sleazy. Of cloth, thin and loosely woven. Of very poor quality, flimsy. Morally degraded. Snazzy. flashily stylish. Stubby. Short and blunt. Trashy. Cheap and inferior, of no value. Tastelessly showy. Tricky. Not to be trusted. Having concealed difficulty. Marked by skill and deception. Truism. An obvious truth. Unholy. Not hallowed or consecrated. Extremely evil or cruel, expressive of cruelty or befitting hell. Having committed unrighteous acts. Uppity. Presumptuously arrogant. Utopia. Ideally perfect state, especially in its social and political and moral aspects. An imaginary place considered to be perfect or ideal. Vermin. Animals that prey on game, such as foxes or weasels. Any one of various common types of small insects or animals which cause harm and annoyance, obnoxious, or mean and offensive person or people. Warden. The chief official in charge of a prison. Weirdo. Someone unpleasantly strange or eccentric. Someone deranged and possibly dangerous. A strange, odd, eccentric person. An insane, possibly dangerous person. Wrench. A sudden violent twist or pull. Pull or twist someone or something, suddenly and violently. A feeling of sadness, or distress caused by one's own or another's departure. Yonder. At some distance in the direction indicated, over there. The vast distance, particularly the sky or trackless forest. Abysmal. Very great, limitless. Resembling an abyss in depth, so deep as to be unmeasurable. Affront. A deliberately offensive act or something producing the effect of deliberate disrespect. Treat, mention, or speak too rudely. Agility. The gracefulness of a person or animal that is quick and nimble. Anguish. Extreme mental distress. Extreme distress of body or mind. Suffer great pains or distress. Cause emotional anguish or make miserable. Arsenal. A military establishment for the storing, development, manufacturing, testing, or repairing of arms, ammunition, and other war material, an armory. A stock of weapons, especially all the weapons that a nation possesses. A store or supply of anything. Any supply of aid collected to prepare a person or army for hardship. Bargain. A thing bought or offered for sale more cheaply than is usual or expected. An agreement between two or more parties as to what each party will do for the other. Negotiate the terms and conditions of a transaction. Beseech. Ask for or request earnestly. Bonanza. A situation or event that creates a sudden increase in wealth, good fortune, or profits. A large amount of something desirable. Boorish. Ill-mannered and coarse and contemptible in behavior or appearance. Bouncer. A person whose duty is to throw troublemakers out of a bar or public meeting. Brittle. Emotionally fragile, easily offended. Inflexible, liable to break, snap, or shatter easily under stress, pressure, or impact. Not physically tough or tenacious, apt to break or crumble when bending. Carcass. The dead body of an animal, especially one slaughtered and dressed for food. Carnage. Any chaotic situation. Any great loss by a team, a game in which one team wins overwhelmingly. Death and destruction. The corpses, gore, etc., that remain after a massacre. Charade. A word acted out in an episode of the game of charades. Making a false outward show. Courier. A person who carries a message. Custody. Parental responsibility, especially as allocated to one of two divorcing parents. Imprisonment. The protective care or guardianship of someone or something. Diluted. Lessen the strength or flavor of a solution or mixture. Corrupt, debase, or make impure by adding a foreign or inferior substance, often by replacing valuable ingredients with inferior ones. Reduced in strength or concentration or quality or purity. Dragnet. A system of coordinated measures for apprehending criminals or other individuals. A conical fishnet dragged through the water at great depths. Drifter. A wanderer who has no established residence or visible means of support. Drought. A shortage of rainfall. A prolonged shortage. Drunken. Given to or marked by the consumption of alcohol. Dubious. Fraught with uncertainty or doubt. Open to doubt or suspicion. Not convinced. Dynasty. A sequence of powerful leaders in the same family. Ecstasy. A state of being carried away by overwhelming emotion. A state of elated bliss. Street names for methylenedioxymethamphetamine. Elegant. Refined and tasteful in appearance or behavior or style. Suggesting taste, ease, and wealth. Displaying effortless beauty and simplicity in movement or execution. Entropy. Lack of order or predictability, gradual decline into disorder. A thermodynamic quantity representing the unavailability of a system's thermal energy for conversion into mechanical work, often interpreted as the degree of disorder or randomness in the system. Epitome. A person or thing that is a perfect example of a particular quality or type. A summary of a written work, an abstract. Frantic. Insane, mentally unstable. Extremely energetic. In a state of panic, worry, frenzy, or rush. A person who is insane or mentally unstable, madman. Furious. Full of anger or energy, violent or intense. Extremely angry. Getaway. A vacation. An escape or quick departure, especially after committing a crime. Gourmet. A person devoted to refined sensuous enjoyment, especially good food and drink. Hangman. An executioner who hangs the condemned person. Harmony. Compatibility in opinion and action. The structure of music with respect to the composition and progression of chords. Agreement of opinions. An agreeable sound property. Heiress. A woman who has a right of inheritance, or who stands to inherit. A woman who has received an inheritance. Holster. A belt with loops or slots for carrying small tools or other equipment. A case for carrying a tool, particularly a gun, safely and accessibly. To put something in a holster. Hostage. A prisoner who is held by one party to ensure that another party will meet specified terms. Implore. Call upon in supplication, entreat. Impulse. A driving or motivating force. A sudden desire. Indulge. Allow oneself to enjoy the pleasure of. Become involved in an activity, typically one that is undesirable or disapproved of. Inmates. One of several resident of a dwelling, especially someone confined to a prison or hospital. A patient who is residing in the hospital where he is being treated. A person serving a sentence in a jail or prison. Inquire. Address a question to, and expect an answer from. Have a wish or desire to know something. Conduct an inquiry or investigation of. Insofar. To the degree or extent that. Jackass. A man who is a stupid, incompetent fool. Male donkey. Labor. Someone who works with their hands, someone engaged in manual labor. Leisure. Time available for ease and relaxation. Freedom to choose a pastime or enjoyable activity. Lunatic. Crazed, mad, insane, demented. An insane person. Macabre. Shockingly repellent, inspiring horror. Marquee. Large and often sumptuous tent. Permanent canopy over an entrance of a hotel, etc. Mileage. Distance measured in miles. The ratio of the number of miles traveled to the number of gallons of gasoline burned. A travel allowance at a given rate per mile traveled. Modesty. Freedom from vanity or conceit. Formality and propriety of manner. Muffler. A tubular acoustic device inserted in the exhaust system that is designed to reduce noise. A scarf worn around the neck. A device that decreases the amplitude of electronic, mechanical, acoustical, or aerodynamic oscillations. Nightly. Happening every night. At the end of each day. Obliged. Force somebody to do something. Bind by an obligation, cause to be indebted. Provide a service or favor for someone. Under a moral obligation to do something. Panache. Distinctive and stylish elegance. A feathered plume on a helmet. Pilgrim. A silk screen formerly attached to the back of a woman's bonnet to protect the neck. A newcomer. One who travels, especially on a journey to visit sites of religious significance. To journey, to wander, to ramble. Pliable. Susceptible to being led or directed. Capable of being shaped or bent or drawn out. Able to adjust readily to different conditions. Capable of being bent or flexed or twisted without breaking. Prairie. A treeless grassy plain. Progeny. The immediate descendants of a person. Rampage. A course of violent, frenzied action. To move about wildly or violently. Regalia. The emblems or insignia of royalty, especially the crown, scepter, and other ornaments used at a coronation. Especially fine or decorative clothing. Samurai. A Japanese warrior who was a member of the feudal military aristocracy. Feudal Japanese military aristocracy. Sarcasm. Witty language used to convey insults or scorn. Scourge. Something causing misery or death. A person or thing that causes great trouble or suffering. Cause great suffering to. Whip someone, as a punishment. Scrawny. Thin, malnourished and weak. Seizure. The action of capturing someone or something using force. A sudden attack of illness, especially a stroke or an epileptic fit. Sojourn. A temporary stay. Stay somewhere temporarily. Stinker. A very bad or unpleasant person or thing. A difficult task. A person or thing that smells very bad. Strudel. Thin sheet of filth rolled and baked. Testify. Give testimony in a court of law. Provide evidence for. Trooper. A soldier in a motorized army unit. A mounted police officer. A state police officer. A soldier mounted on horseback. Vicious. Deliberately cruel or violent. Bringing or deserving severe rebuke or censure. Marked by deep ill will, deliberately harmful. Anecdote. An account regarded as unreliable or hearsay. A short, amusing, or interesting story about a real incident or person. Antidote. A remedy that stops or controls the effects of a poison. Artistic. Relating to or characteristic of art or artists. Satisfying aesthetic standards and sensibilities. Aesthetically pleasing. Bandana. Large and brightly colored handkerchief, often used as a neckerchief. Behemoth. Any great and mighty monster. Something which has the qualities of great power and might, and monstrous proportions. Betrayal. An act of deliberate betrayal. The quality of aiding an enemy. Beverage. Any liquid suitable for drinking. Bonehead. A stupid person, these words are used to express a low opinion of someone's intelligence. Briefest. Of short duration or distance. Concise and succinct. Cauldron. A very large pot that is used for boiling. Colossal. So great in size or force or extent as to elicit awe. Conjured. Summon into action, or bring into existence, often as if by magic. Ask for or request earnestly. Engage in plotting, or enter into a conspiracy, swear together. Contempt. Open disrespect or willful disobedience of the authority of a court of law or legislative body. The state or act of contemning, the feeling or attitude of regarding someone or something as inferior, base, or worthless, scorn, disdain. The state of being despised or dishonored, disgrace. Corporal. Having a physical, tangible body, material, corporeal. Of or pertaining to the body, especially the human body, bodily. A non-commissioned officer rank in the police force, below a sergeant, but above a private or patrolman. Crescent. Any shape resembling the curved shape of the moon in its first or last quarters. Resembling the new moon in shape. Decrepit. Weakened or worn out from age or wear. Delirium. State of violent mental agitation. A usually brief state of excitement, and mental confusion often accompanied by hallucinations. Dialysis. Separation of substances in solution by means of their unequal diffusion through semipermeable membranes. Episodic. Of writing or narration, divided into or composed of episodes. Occurring or appearing at usually irregular intervals. Limited in duration to a single episode. Euphoria. A feeling or state of intense excitement and happiness. Fanatics. Person filled with excessive and single-minded zeal, especially for an extreme religious or political cause. Feminine. The female sex or gender. Having qualities or an appearance traditionally associated with women. Flattery. An instance of excessive praise. Excessive praise or approval, which is often insincere, and sometimes contrived to win favor. Homicide. A person who kills another. A victim of homicide, a person who has been unlawfully killed by someone else. The killing of one person by another, whether premeditated or unintentional. Infamous. Known widely and usually unfavorably. Intimacy. Close or warm friendship. A usually secretive or illicit sexual relationship. A feeling of being intimate and belonging together. Landlord. A landowner who leases to others. Legality. Obligations imposed by law. The quality or state of being in accordance with the law. Lobotomy. Surgical interruption of nerve tracts to and from the frontal lobe of the brain, often results in marked cognitive and personality changes. Massacre. The killing of a considerable number, usually limited to people, where little or no resistance can be made, with indiscriminate violence, without necessity, and contrary to civilized norms. To kill in considerable numbers where little or no resistance can be made, with indiscriminate violence, without necessity, and contrary to civilized norms, often limited to the killing of human beings. Mortgage. A conditional conveyance of property as security for the repayment of a loan. Put up as security or collateral. Necrosis. The death of most or all of the cells in an organ or tissue due to disease, injury, or failure of the blood supply. Oriental. Denoting or characteristic of countries of the Far East. Outburst. An unrestrained expression of emotion. A sudden intense happening. A sudden violent disturbance. Outhouse. A small outbuilding with a bench, having holes through which a user can defecate. Outright. Without reservation or exception. Without restrictions or stipulations or further payments. Without reservation or concealment. Without any delay. Overrate. Make too high an estimate of. Parasite. An organism that lives in or on an organism of another species, its host, and benefits by deriving nutrients at the other's expense. A person who habitually relies on or exploits others, and gives nothing in return. Peculiar. Common or usual for a certain place or circumstance, specific or particular. Out of the ordinary, odd, strange, unusual. An ecclesiastical district, parish, chapel, or church outside the jurisdiction of the bishop of the diocese in which it is situated. That which is peculiar, a sole or exclusive property, a prerogative, a characteristic. Populace. People in general, considered as a whole. Quandary. A situation from which extrication is difficult, especially an unpleasant or trying one. State of uncertainty, or perplexity, especially as requiring a choice between equally unfavorable options. Radiator. A thing that radiates or emits light, heat, or sound. An engine cooling device in a motor vehicle or aircraft consisting of a bank of thin tubes in which circulating fluid is cooled by the surrounding air. Referral. A person whose case has been referred to a specialist or professional group. An act of referring someone or something for consultation, review, or further action. Regiment. A permanent unit of an army typically commanded by a colonel and divided into several companies, squadrons, or batteries, and often into 2 battalions. Organized according to a strict, sometimes oppressive system or pattern. Renegade. Someone who rebels and becomes an outlaw. A disloyal person who betrays, or deserts his cause or religion, or political party or friend, etc. Break with established customs. Having deserted a cause or principle. Sadistic. Causing a high degree of pain or humiliation. Delighting in or feeling pleasure from the pain or humiliation of others. A behavior which gives pleasure in the pain or humiliation of others. sinister, threatening or foreshadowing evil or tragic developments, stemming from evil characteristics or forces, wicked or dishonorable, on or starting from the wearer's left, sluggish, slow-moving or inactive, slow and apathetic, snatcher, a thief who grabs and runs, someone who unlawfully seizes and detains a victim, subhuman, less than human or not worthy of a human being, unfit for human beings, suicidal, dangerous to yourself or your interests, symbolic, relating to or using or proceeding by means of symbols, serving as a visible symbol for something abstract, using symbolism, sympathy, an inclination to support, or be loyal to or to agree with an opinion, sharing the feelings of others, especially feelings of sorrow or anguish, a relation of affinity or harmony between people, whatever affects one correspondingly affects the other, tolerate, to allow something that one dislikes or disagrees with, to exist or occur without interference, vendetta, a feud in which members of the opposing parties murder each other, verbatim, in precisely the same words used by a writer or speaker, using exactly the same words, vigorous, characterized by forceful and energetic action or activity, strong and active physically or mentally, wreckage, the remaining parts of something that has been wrecked, something wrecked, especially the remains or debris of something which has been severely damaged or destroyed, abscesses, symptom consisting of a localized collection of pus surrounded by inflamed tissue, absorbent, a material having capacity or tendency to absorb another substance, having power or capacity or tendency to absorb, or soak up something liquids or energy, etc. Aesthetic, a set of principles underlying and guiding the work of a particular artist or artistic movement, giving or designed to give pleasure through beauty, of pleasing appearance, concerned with beauty or the appreciation of beauty. Aftermath, the consequences or after-effects of a significant unpleasant event. The outcome of an event especially is relative to an individual. Arrogance, overbearing pride evidenced by a superior manner toward inferiors. The state of being arrogant, a type of extreme or foolish pride in which someone feels much superior to another. Ascertain, establish after a calculation, investigation, experiment, survey, or study. Be careful or certain to do something, make certain of something. Find out, learn, or determine with certainty, usually by making an inquiry or other effort. Learn or discover with certainty. Blaspheme, utter obscenities or profanities. Speak of in an irreverent or impious manner. Blasphemy, the act or offense of speaking sacrilegiously about God or sacred things, profane talk. Bloodbath, a large financial loss or massive layoff brought about by negative economic conditions. Indiscriminate killing or slaughter, a massacre. Bourgeois, a capitalist who engages in industrial commercial enterprise. A member of the middle class. Conforming to the standards and conventions of the middle class. Brutality, a cruel or savage act. The state of being brutal. The use of excessive physical force, often in the form of violence. Confidant, someone to whom private matters are confided. Curiosity, a state in which you want to learn more about something. Something unusual, perhaps worthy of collecting. Dentistry, The branch of medicine dealing with the anatomy and development and diseases of the teeth. Dependent. A person who relies on another person for support, especially financial support. Contingent on something else. Addicted to a drug. Dispenser. A container so designed that the contents can be used in prescribed amounts. A person who dispenses. Eloquence. Powerful and effective language. Emphasize. To stress, single out as important. Give special importance or prominence to something, in speaking or writing. Endurance. The power to withstand hardship or stress. A state of surviving, remaining alive. Enforcers. One whose job it is to execute unpleasant tasks for a superior. Exquisite. Intense or sharp. Lavishly elegant and refined. Delicately beautiful. Of extreme beauty. Fictional. Related to or involving literary fiction. Formed or conceived by the imagination. Fugitives. Someone who flees from an uncongenial situation. Someone who is sought by law officers, someone trying to elude justice. Plural of fugitive. Geriatric. Of or relating to the aged. Of or relating to or practicing geriatrics. Homicidal. Characteristic of or capable of, or having a tendency toward killing another human being. Of or pertaining to homicide. Hypocrite. Someone who practices hypocrisy, who pretends to hold beliefs, or whose actions are not consistent with their claimed beliefs. Impartial. Showing lack of favoritism. Free from undue bias or preconceived opinions. Incapable. Unable to do or achieve something. Not allowing the possibility of a particular action. Not meeting requirements. Incarnate. Make concrete and real. Represent in bodily form. Possessing or existing in bodily form. Invested with a bodily form, especially of a human body. Inclement. Unpleasantly cold or wet. Used of persons or behavior, showing no clemency or mercy. Indulging. Allow oneself to enjoy the pleasure of. Become involved in an activity, typically one that is undesirable or disapproved of. Insinuate. Slide oneself or a thing, slowly and smoothly into a position. Suggest or hint something bad or reprehensible, in an indirect and unpleasant way. Isolation. The state of being isolated, detached, or separated, the state of being away from other people. A Freudian defense mechanism in which a person suppresses a harmful thought from developing into a train of thought. Machinery. Machines or machine systems collectively. A system of means and activities whereby a social institution functions. Marauders. Someone who attacks in search of booty. Marvelous. Exciting wonder, surprise, astonishing, wonderful, delightful. Melodrama. An extravagant comedy in which action is more salient than characterization. Momentary. Lasting for a very short time. Mythology. Myths collectively, the body of stories associated with a culture or institution or person. The study of myths. Narcotics. Pertaining to illicit drugs, especially psychoactive ones. Plural of narcotic. Notorious. Known widely and usually unfavorably. Pantomime. A performance using gestures and body movements without words. Act out without words, but with gestures and bodily movements only. Paralysis. Loss of the ability to move a body part. Paralyzed. Made powerless and unable to function. Caused to be paralyzed and immobile. Affected with paralysis. Paramount. Having superior power and influence. Penetrate. To achieve understanding of, despite some obstacle, to comprehend, to understand. To affect profoundly through the senses or feelings, to move deeply. To enter into, to make way into the interior of, to pierce. To infiltrate an enemy to gather intelligence. Perforate. Make a hole into or between, as for ease of separation. Pass into or through, often by overcoming resistance. Having a hole cut through. Pituitary. The master gland of the endocrine system, located at the base of the brain. Of or relating to the pituitary gland. Predatory. Characterized by plundering or pillaging or marauding. Living by preying on other animals, especially by catching living prey. Living by or given to victimizing others for personal gain. Prognosis. A forecast of the likely outcome of a situation. A prediction of the course of a disease. Pseudonym. A fictitious name used when the person performs a particular social role. Psychotic. Of, related to, or suffering from psychosis. A person affected by psychosis. Redundant. More than is needed, desired, or required. Or unnecessary. Repetition of same sense in different words. Reimburse. Repay a sum of money that has been spent or lost. Repay a person who has spent or lost money. Reinforce. Make stronger. Strengthen and support with rewards. Reiterate. To say, state, or perform again. Repugnant. Offensive to the mind. Retaliate. To do something harmful or negative to get revenge for some harm, to fight back, or respond in kind to an injury or affront. To repay or requite by an act of the same kind. Sarcastic. Expressing or expressive of ridicule that wounds. Servility. Abject or cringing submissiveness. Socialize. To interact with others. To instruct somebody, usually subconsciously, in the etiquette of a society. To take something into collective or governmental ownership. Sorceress. A woman sorcerer. Specimens. An example regarded as typical of its class. A bit of tissue or blood or urine that is taken for diagnostic purposes. Speculate. To believe especially on uncertain or tentative grounds. Talk over conjecturally, or review in an idle or casual way, and with an element of doubt, or without sufficient reason to reach a conclusion. Reflect deeply on a subject. Invest at a risk. Statistic. A datum that can be represented numerically. Terrorize. To coerce someone, by using threats or violence. To fill someone with terror, to terrify. Thereupon. Following that, forthwith, in sequence, but not necessarily in consequence. In consequence, or by reason, of that, therefore. Upon that, thereon. Vehicular. Involving or by means of a vehicle or vehicles. Vengeance. The act of taking revenge, harming someone in retaliation for something harmful that they have done. Vigilante. A person who considers it their own responsibility to uphold the law in their neighborhood and often does so summarily and without legal jurisdiction. Zeitgeist. The spirit of the time, the spirit characteristic of an age or generation. Anesthetic. Causing anesthesia, reducing pain sensitivity. Insensate, unable to feel, or unconscious. A substance administered to reduce the perception of pain, or to induce numbness for surgery, and may render the recipient unconscious. Apocalypse. A cosmic cataclysm in which God destroys the ruling powers of evil. The last book of the New Testament contains visionary descriptions of heaven and of conflicts between good and evil, and of the end of the world, attributed to St. John the Apostle. Apparition. A ghostly appearing figure. The appearance of a ghost-like figure. Something existing in perception only. An act of appearing, or becoming visible unexpectedly. Auditorium. The area of a theater or concert hall where the audience sits. Benefactor. Somebody who gives a gift, often money, to a charity. Someone who performs good or noble deeds. Condescend. Behave in a patronizing and condescending manner. Do something that one considers to be below one's dignity. Debase oneself morally, act in an undignified, unworthy, or dishonorable way. Treat condescendingly. Conscience. Motivation deriving logically from ethical or moral principles that govern a person's thoughts and actions. Conformity to one's own sense of right conduct. A feeling of shame when you do something immoral. Contagious. Easily transmitted to others. Having a disease that can be transmitted to another person. Conviction. A firmly held belief. A judgment of guilt in a court of law. The state of being found or proved guilty. The state of being wholly convinced. Diabolical. Extremely wicked or cruel. Of or concerning the devil, satanic. Digression. A message that departs from the main subject. A turning aside of your course or attention or concern. Wandering from the main path of a journey. Disservice. An act intended to help that turns out badly. Elucidated. Make something clear, explain. Release someone from a duty or obligation. Exonerated. Pronounced not guilty of criminal charges. Absolve someone from blame for a fault or wrongdoing, especially after due consideration of the case. Fictitious. Formed or conceived by the imagination. Adopted in order to deceive. Fortuitous. Having no cause or apparent cause. Occurring by happy chance. Fraternize. Be on friendly terms with someone, as if with a brother, especially with an enemy. Futuristic. Of or relating to futurism. Gargantuan. Of great mass, huge and bulky. Generosity. Good breeding, nobility of stock. A generous act. The trait of being abundant, more than adequate. The trait of being willing to donate money, time or resources. Hysterical. Having, or prone to having hysterics. Of, or arising from hysteria. Provoking uncontrollable laughter. Illiterate. A person unable to read. Not able to read or write. Uneducated in the fundamentals of a given art or branch of learning, lacking knowledge of a specific field. Lacking culture, especially in language and literature. Impervious. Immune to damage or effect. Preventive of any penetration, impenetrable, impermeable, particularly of water. Unaffected or unable to be affected by something. Indictment. A formal document written for a prosecuting attorney charging a person with some offense. An accusation of wrongdoing. Infallible. Certain to produce the intended effect, sure. Without fault or weakness, incapable of error or fallacy. A person who, or an object or process that, is taken as being infallible. Informants. A person who supplies information. Someone who sees an event and reports what happened. Inhumanity. The quality of lacking compassion or consideration for others. An act of atrocious cruelty. Laundromat. A self-service laundry facility with traditionally coin-operated which now may use other per-load payment methods, washing machines, dryers, and sometimes ironing or pressing machines, open to the public for washing clothing and household cloth items. Melancholy. Affected with great sadness or depression. Black bile, formerly thought to be one of the 4 cardinal humors of animal bodies. Great sadness or depression, especially of a thoughtful or introspective nature. Monogamous. Having a sexual relationship with only one partner at a time. Outrageous. Grossly offensive to decency or morality, causing horror. Greatly exceeding bounds of reason or moderation. Fierce, violent, shocking, exceeding conventional behavior, provocative. Perversion. Sexual behavior or desire that is considered abnormal or unacceptable. The alteration of something from its original course, meaning, or state to a distortion or corruption of what was first intended. Phrenology. A now abandoned study of the shape of skull as indicative of the strengths of different faculties. Plantation. An estate on which crops such as coffee, sugar, and tobacco are cultivated by resident labor. A newly established colony, especially in the colonization of North America. Garden consisting of a small cultivated wood without undergrowth. Precarious. Affording no ease or reassurance. Fraught with danger. Not secure, beset with difficulties. Prejudiced. Disadvantaged by prejudice. Give rise to prejudice in someone, make biased. Having or showing a dislike, or distrust that is derived from prejudice, bigoted. Cause harm to a state of affairs. Proficient. Having or showing knowledge and skill and aptitude. Of or relating to technique or proficiency in a practical skill. Prosecutor. A person, as a complainant, victim, or chief witness, who institutes prosecution in a criminal proceeding. A prosecuting attorney. Quarantine. Enforced isolation of patients suffering from a contagious disease, in order to prevent the spread of disease. Isolation to prevent the spread of infectious disease. Place into enforced isolation, as for medical reasons. Regimented. Form troops into a regiment or regiments. Organize according to a strict, sometimes oppressive system or pattern. Very strictly organized or controlled. Rendezvous. A place appointed for a meeting, or at which persons customarily meet. An agreement to meet at a certain place and time. To meet at an agreed time and place. Repetition. An event that repeats. The act of doing or performing again. The repeated use of the same word or word pattern as a rhetorical device. Retrospect. A survey or review of a past course of events or period of time. Look back upon a period of time, sequence of events. Rhetorical. not earnest, or presented only for the purpose of an argument. Part of or similar to rhetoric, the use of language as a means to persuade. A study or exercise in rhetoric. Simplicity. The quality of being simple or uncompounded. A lack of penetration or subtlety. Absence of affectation or pretense. Freedom from difficulty or hardship or effort. Singularly. In a singular manner, or to a singular degree. Extremely, remarkably. In the singular number, in terms of a single thing. Strangely, oddly. Solidarity. A bond of unity or agreement between individuals, united around a common goal, or against a common enemy, such as the unifying principle that defines the labor movement, mutual support within a group. Willingness to give psychological and/or material support when another person is in a difficult position or needs affection. Stagecoach. A large coach in four formerly used to carry passengers and mail on regular routes between towns. Turbulence. Unstable flow of a liquid or gas. Instability in the atmosphere. A state of violent disturbance and disorder, as in politics or social conditions generally. Bisexuality. The state of being bisexual, having both male and female parts or roles. The state of being sexually or romantically attracted to members of either sex or gender. Cannibalize. Eat human flesh. Use parts of something to repair something else. Carnivorous. Insectivorous, capable of trapping insects and absorbing nutrient from them. Of, or relating to carnivores, or the taxonomic order Carnivora. Predatory or flesh-eating. Conceivably. Within the realm of possibility. Conspicuous. Noticeable or attracting attention, especially if unattractive. Obvious or easy to notice. Contaminate. To make something dangerous or toxic, by introducing impurities or foreign matter. To make unfit for use by the introduction of unwholesome or undesirable elements. To soil, stain, corrupt, or infect by contact or association. To infect, often with bad objects. Contemplate. To consider as a possibility. To look at on all sides, or in all its aspects, to view or consider with continued attention, to regard with deliberate care, to meditate on, to study, ponder, or consider. Declarative. A statement in the form of a declaration. Of the nature of or making a declaration. Relating to the mood of verbs, that is used simple in declarative statements. Emancipated. Give equal rights to, of women and minorities. Free from slavery or servitude. Free from traditional social restraints. Godforsaken. Abandoned by a deity or god. Particularly awful, very bad. Guesstimate. An estimate that combines reasoning with guessing. Estimate based on a calculation. Illustrious. Widely known and esteemed. Having or conferring glory. Implication. The action or state of being involved in something. The conclusion that can be drawn from something, although it is not explicitly stated. Inclination. The angle at which a straight line or plane is inclined to another. A slope or slant. A person's natural tendency or urge to act, or feel in a particular way, a disposition or propensity. Nonsensical. Without sense, absurd. Pandemonium. A state of extreme confusion and disorder. Persnickety. Placing too much emphasis on trivial or minor details, fussy. requiring a particularly precise or careful approach. Punctuality. The quality or habit of adhering to an appointed time. Rationalize. Defend, explain, clear away, or make excuses for by reasoning. Weed out unwanted or unnecessary things. Structure and run according to rational or scientific principles in order to achieve desired results. Think rationally, employ logic or reason. Retribution. A justly deserved penalty. The act of correcting for your wrongdoing. The act of taking revenge, harming someone in retaliation for something harmful that they have done. Punishment inflicted in the spirit of moral outrage or personal vengeance. Sympathetic. Attracting the liking of others, construction designed in a sensitive or appropriate way. Of, related to, feeling, showing, or characterized by sympathy, showing approval of or favor towards an idea or action. Showing approval of or favor towards an idea or action. Treacherous. Deceitful, inclined to betray. Exhibiting treachery. Unreliable, dangerous. Alliterative. Having the same consonant at the beginning of each stressed syllable. Antagonizing. Provoke the hostility of. Act in opposition to. Apprehending. Get the meaning of something. Take into custody. Anticipate with dread or anxiety. Bloodthirsty. Marked by eagerness to resort to violence and bloodshed. Of a mosquito, tenaciously seeking to draw blood. Of a book, film, etc., depicting much violence, gory, violent. Thirsty for blood, inexorably violent or eager for bloodshed, murderous. Collaborator. Someone who assists in a plot. Someone who collaborates with an enemy occupying force. An associate in an activity or endeavor or sphere of common interest. Confederates. Supporter of the Confederate States of America. Someone who assists in a plot. Person who joins with another in carrying out some plan, especially an unethical or illegal plan. Person one works with, especially in something secret or illegal, an accomplice. Denomination. A unit in a series of units of weight, money, etc. that by which anything is denominated or styled, an epithet, a name, designation, or title, especially, a general name indicating a class of like individuals. A class, or society of individuals, called by the same name, a sect or religious subgroup. The act of naming or designating. Endangerment. A source of danger, a possibility of incurring loss or misfortune. Enlightening. Make understand. Give spiritual insight to, in religion. Make free from confusion or ambiguity, make clear. Tending to increase knowledge or dissipate ignorance. Entrepreneur. Someone who organizes a business venture and assumes the risk for it. Excruciating. Torment emotionally or mentally. Subject to torture. Extremely painful. Causing great pain or anguish, agonizing. Extravaganza. Any lavishly staged or spectacular entertainment. An extravagant or eccentric piece of music, literature, or drama. An instance of fantastical, unrestrained, lavish, or chaotic behavior or conduct. Facilitating. Make an action or process easy or easier. Haberdashery. A store where men's clothes are sold. The dry goods sold by a haberdasher. Hysterically. In a hysterical manner, showing signs of hysteria. With, or causing, very much laughter. Inconsolable. not consolable, unable to be consoled or comforted, usually due to grief, disappointment, or other distress. Manslaughter. The slaying of a human being. The unlawful killing of a human, either in negligence or incidentally to the commission of some unlawful act, but without specific malice, or upon a sudden excitement of anger, considered less culpable than murder, but more culpable than justifiable homicide. Naturalistic. Representing what is real, not abstract or ideal. Navigational. Of or relating to navigation. Pertaining to navigation. Paraphrasing. Express the same message in different words. Penitentiary. A correctional institution for those convicted of major crimes. Used for punishment or reform of criminals or wrongdoers. Showing or constituting penance. Psychopathic. Exhibiting the behaviors and personality traits of a psychopath. A psychopath. Psychosexual. Of or relating to the mental or emotional attitudes about sexuality. Rambunctious. Noisy and lacking in restraint or discipline. Recreational. Of or relating to recreation. Engaged in as a pastime. For, or relating to, recreation. Surveillance. In criminal law, an investigation process by which police gather evidence about crimes, or suspected crime, through continued observation of persons or places. Close observation of an individual or group, person or persons under suspicion. Continuous monitoring of disease occurrence, for example. Unfathomable. Difficult to penetrate. Impossible to fathom or understand. Condescending. Assuming a tone of superiority, or a patronizing attitude. Having or showing a feeling of patronizing superiority. Controversial. Marked by or capable of arousing controversy. Arousing controversy, debate or discussion of opposing opinions. Corroboration. Confirmation that some fact or statement is true through the use of documentary evidence. That which corroborates. The act of corroborating, strengthening, or confirming, addition of strength, confirmation. Dispassionate. Unaffected by strong emotion or prejudice. Dramatization. Conversion into dramatic form. A dramatic representation. Extermination. Complete annihilation. The act of exterminating. Extraordinary. Beyond what is ordinary or usual, highly unusual or exceptional or remarkable. Remarkably good. Anything that goes beyond what is ordinary. Idiosyncratic. Peculiar to the individual. Incapacitated. Make unable to perform a certain action. Injure permanently. Lacking in or deprived of strength or power. Inconceivable. Totally unlikely. Projectionist. The person who operates the projector in a movie house. Reincarnation. Embodiment in a new form, especially the reappearance, or a person in another form. A new version of something from the past. Schizophrenia. Any condition in which disparate or mutually exclusive activities coexist, a lack of decision between options. A psychiatric diagnosis denoting a persistent, often chronic mental illness characterized by abnormal perception, thinking, behavior and emotion, often marked by delusions. Temperamental. Relating to or caused by temperament. Subject to sharply varying moods. Likely to perform unpredictably. Characteristic. A prominent attribute or aspect of something. Any measurable property of a device measured under closely specified conditions. Confidentiality. Something told in confidence, a secret. The property of being confidential. Insubordination. Defiance of authority. An insubordinate act. The quality or state of being insubordinate, disobedience to lawful authority, specifically, an employee's failure or refusal to comply with a request, or an assignment given by his or her supervisor. Philosophically. In a philosophic manner. With respect to philosophy,